Hi, I'm Bob Roth, managing partner and co-founder of Cypress HomeCare Solutions. Since 1994, we've been helping older adults in the Phoenix community age gracefully and safely in the place they call home. Since 2014, I've been bringing you Health Futures, Taking Stock in You, a show dedicated to helping you live a longer, healthier, and happier life. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast, and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to Health Futures, and this guest I have today is somebody I've been really looking forward to having here on the show. He sits right at the intersection of aging, family decision-making, ethics, and leadership. And you know, this gentleman has been on my show 7 different times, but it's been like nearly 6 years. What the heck?
I don't know. What is the
Scott
heck?
Fischer,
Good to see you.
welcome back to Health Futures.
Thanks, Bob. It's good to be here. It's good to do this again. It feels like very comfortable, like an old baseball mitt. We just kind of find our way back in. It's very, very comfortable.
You and I have known one another about 22 years. But, you know, I did a little bit of research before getting you on.
Okay.
And you've got all these letters that are behind your name. So your BSN, CPRS.
Right.
What is a CPRS?
So when we were a part of the group that launched the National Placement and Referral Alliance, which is a national trade association for the placement industry, there was no benchmark, there was no credentialing or certification for people that do what we call placement.
Right.
And so one of our first initiatives in 2017-18 was to write our own credential and certification program. And I was one of the first 100 agents in the nation to achieve and earn that, I think, prestigious credential for the industry that has lacked shape and professionalism and ethics for 25 years.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to hold that tab down because we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
And then you're a CDP.
Yep.
And that is what?
That is the Certified Dementia Practitioner. So it's another prestigious credential that you can earn. Some training, and then we get some insight on how to work with and care for families who are loving their loved one who might be suffering from dementia.
So you and I met literally 22 years ago. Mm-hmm. A woman that worked for me as a scheduler, Lydia Gonzalez, said, "Hey, you need to meet Scott Fischer." Mm. At the time, you two had worked at a place called TLC, Tender Loving Care.
Right.
And if I remember, you were more a behavioral health, home healthcare company.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to take us through the journey. You know, we could talk about where you're from, Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. And if you were wearing a short sleeve shirt, I would have you show off that big tat that you got on your arm. But you're a Cincinnati boy and came out here. You came out here for school, right?
My dad moved us here in 1979, and I finished high school here. He had happy feet, and every 3 to 4 years he bounced around. In 1984, he moved back to Ohio, and I got off the train and stayed here, finished college, graduated high school in 81, went to college until I graduated from ASU with my degree in nursing. And in those days, there wasn't very many guys in the nursing program. No,
you probably went in the nursing program to meet girls.
That's what people would have thought, you know. And that trail led me to what my first love in my career, and that was working in the mental health and behavioral health space. I spent almost 2 decades working with people who had various mental health challenges. And matter of fact, I specialized in working with really agitated, mentally ill kids for years. Mm-hmm. One of those kids and I and my staff got tangled up in an altercation. I ripped up my ligaments in my hand, surgery and all that. Subsequently, I started working with the elderly, mostly those folks that had dementia. And that led me to that job at TLC that you referenced. And I was a visiting home health nurse. Medicare benefits paid for us to go out and be the eyes and ears for the physicians who were caring for people who were having some psychiatric symptoms along with their dementia. That led me in and out of senior living for the first time. And there was this new industry sort of percolating.
It was new back then.
It was really new. The placement folks, there was a handful of people around town that I met that were calling themselves placement or referral agents. And at 40 years old, I was really sick of working corporately. One time in my life to do something for myself. And I stepped out in faith and started a business.
And the business you started was Options for Senior Living.
For Senior Living 23 years ago, coming up here on March 1st, 2026 will be 23 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
But, for me, how did your nursing experience shape your development of this new entity that you have? Because obviously you were trained to be a clinician, and now when you're working with these families, you're almost like a therapist.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to really empathize. You have to be able to understand where they're at and really be able to help them make some really tough choices.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that's what helped me stand out initially was that in nursing school, they pound a concept into your head, into your life, and it's called the nursing process. And it's assess and evaluate and create a plan, and then evaluate and modify and keep moving. And so I attached that concept to what I was now doing with families. And so I developed a process. It was kind of subconscious. It was just kind of built into my operating system, I think. But as I've known other agents from around the nation that were not clinical, you could see that they don't have any process. They're not thinking about, they're just trying to solve the immediate problem. They're not looking at the whole thing more conceptually or holistically, in solving for problems for later, not just the problem in the moment. And so I just thought that my clinical experience was going to give me sort of an inside track at working with people. It was going to help me earn the confidence of families, earn the confidence of professionals like yourself that might be referring partners to me, and other clinicians at the hospitals and discharge planners that might be looking for, a professional to help them. I wanted to bring some professionalism into what we were doing. Little did I know that there was very little professionalism in this industry at all.
Well, the industry was new.
It was all new.
And just so our listeners and our viewers understand this, I mean, assisted living was still new at the time.
Yeah, it was new.
In 1985, when I entered into the caregiving world, assisted living didn't exist.
Right.
And here we are 15 years later, 17 years later, and you're embarking on this new career. Assisted livings are just popping up everywhere.
And they wanted to, just to be clear, we provide a service to families that's free. We get paid by the receiving facility, a commission or a prearranged contracted referral fee. Well, in 2003, not all the senior living companies were on board with that. They didn't want us getting paid. They wanted their people to get credit for those referrals or move-ins without having a third party to pay. The hospital discharge planners, companies like yours, started looking to placement agents, attorneys, to be the person who could guide families. And so I was really developing myself more as a guide or as a navigator, as an agent, not just a broker.
Right.
And I always saw my role much more conceptually, more impactful than just being a broker. Like if a family asks me, what's the best assisted living in Scottsdale? Like, there's no answer in my mind for that, because it's not like calling McDonald's and getting your Big Mac and fries and whole double pickles or whatever. I want to know what's going on in the bigger system. I need to know that the selections that I'm providing you are sustainable financially, that everybody's on board with what we're doing. I wanted one move. I didn't want to do this as a series of things. And there was an article written in the do you remember the Phoenix magazine? There was an author, contributor, writer that wrote an article about the body brokers of the day. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah,
yeah. And it really offended me because she was speaking about people like me that were largely working in and around the hospitals and the healthcare system, and literally taking families and their loved ones and brokering deals to these private residential homes for the biggest.
Was it the Phoenix New Times?
It was in New Times, and it was in the Phoenix
Because I remember seeing it in New Times. Yeah, I remember
Jana
seeing
Bommersbach was her name.
Right.
She was
she put you guys front and center and
really,
made you guys be the villains.
It really upset me.
100%.
Personally, yeah.
But I mean, for me, you're flying an airplane and building it at the same time. And it wasn't just for options for senior living. It was really for the trade. I mean, look, for our audience, this guy that I have in the room with me, he's legend. Legend in the sense that he's not just known here, you're known throughout the country because you help bring some type of order to chaos. Because it was very chaotic. It was very fragmented. And don't get me wrong, it still is fragmented.
Oh, yeah.
But it's at least it has some cohesiveness. And we'll talk a little bit about the certifications that you created.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I wanted to ask you this, and I have to ask you this because you and I have lived a lot of lives and we're the same age. And damn it, you look really good. And it's part of it is because you're living your best life. But how did you know that this was what you were meant to do? When was that defining moment that Scott Fischer said, wow, you know what? I am really happy that I made the decision to leave bedside to do this, to help families find their loved one's next home.
I remember a particular family in probably 2003. It's when I started. And although I was still working part-time at the community college, I remember this family being really distraught, and the hospital had referred them to me, one of the behavioral health hospitals in town. And they were really distraught. Dad had been aggressive towards his wife, but they had this great 60-year love affair, but Dad's dementia had caused him to act out towards the wife. And in his mind, when she was going, whatever his name was, Pete, it's me, Jeannie. And he in his mind was back 50 years previous, like Jeannie was a beautiful 20-something.
Right.
And here's this 80-year-old lady laying next to him. It freaked him out, and he hurt her. And when I met with the kids and met with her and said, I got this, I'm going to help you figure this out, and walked them through it, and I saw their shoulders drop, like somebody understands and somebody's heart is in this with me. It's those moments. And I remiss to tell you this. I spent almost 20 years prior to that working for the healthcare system, various hospitals and healthcare providers. And for the first time, I was doing it for myself. And so I'm a massive advocate for business ownership and sole proprietorship and doing your own thing and living your best life. And if that means being an entrepreneur, and it's the greatest faith walk I've ever taken, walking out and doing this. Yeah.
The thing I love about you is you're an emotional guy.
Yeah.
You are. And you know what? Believe it or not, that's your superpower. It is. You have to, in this industry, you have to have empathy.
Yeah.
And you can't help it.
I've never lost it. It's still there. Yesterday, somebody asked me on another conversation I was having about, like, all these years later, why are you still advocating for the industry? And I'm like, well, once that switch got flipped in 2009, 2010, when there was such an outrage in town about this industry that didn't have any form, I became energized by it, and I'm still energized by it. I serve in different ways now. But, you and Don Irish and a few others were also instrumental in this man growing up and taking the challenge of not just running a business, but now organizing an industry and being an inspiration to other people and bringing people together over a common mission. Like, that just wasn't on my radar. And so when the opportunity came, I needed big brothers like you and Don and Dave Rosenthal and others to tell me, no, you got it. Go be you. And I had a chance to share that with Don last week, when we were together, because I'm so grateful.
For our listeners, Don lost his beloved Lisa, and had a wonderful celebration of life, but a life that was lost too soon.
But in our world, we both share the fact that our industries are unregulated here in Arizona, right? So we've been aligned to be advocates and protectors of families, and we've 100%. Tried to raise the bar with our other, colleagues and competitors.
Yeah, I do want to get into a lot of that, but I'm still talking about you. And
I danced off of that.
Yeah. but I do want our listeners to know. Yeah. I mean, look, just recently you had the journey that all of us never really want to go through, and that is losing a parent, and you lost your mom. And, you got a chance to know my dad. I got a chance to meet your dad.
Yeah.
And, listen, our parents are really who we are. And that's, that love that we have for them and that respect we have for them. And the aging continuum is really hard. And as much as you and I have experience and we deal with families every day, when it comes to your own, it's hard. And I know that these last couple of years have been really, really hard for you. And I want you to know that you're a great son, man. Because you and I talk a lot.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard, really, really hard. And I think part of what our superpower is that empathy that we have, because we can relate. And you can even more relate than you ever could before, having just done this journey again with your mom. I did my journey in 2002 with my mother at end of life. And then I did it again, literally 20 years later with my dad and my stepmom.
Was that 22?
2002. 2022.
22 when we lost Noodles.
Yeah, I lost Noodles.
Yeah, I was on the show with Noodles.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, you were on 7 shows.
I can't believe it.
And I love having you back here. So I want to talk a little bit about options for senior living.
Yeah, sure.
And the reason why I want to talk about it, because I even look introspectively at Cypress. You and I started at the same time. While Cypress was born in 1994, I didn't come to Cypress till 2003, right about the time you started. Mm-hmm. So you've been at it for 2 decades.
Yep.
I would love for you to share with our listeners how much has changed in 2 decades. How has your organization evolved in that time? And, how do you today meet families at this critical time in their moments today than you did differently? Because technology's changed. I mean, we used to do a lot just in person, and now we're using a lot of tech and innovation. So I would love for you to just share with us. You're a Renaissance man. You've been able to survive. And when you started options for senior living, how many placement companies were around? Placement and referral companies.
Maybe a couple of dozen, but
and how many are today?
There's no telling, but there's hundreds and hundreds of people, even if they're single operators, that just say this is what they do. Yep. So hundreds and hundreds and hundreds in Phoenix.
By the way, I mean, you and the Trailblazers, for the most part, train's probably not the right word, but you enabled them to make a living because you showed how you work. I mean, you showed the community that you don't get paid by them. You get paid by the facility or community. I think you are a trailblazer, and I would love to know how much has changed in the last couple of decades.
Well, it's interesting. I always sort of begin with the end in mind.
Stephen Covey.
I always reference. That's one of my favorite.
Yeah, number 2.
Yeah,
the 7 Habits.
Yeah, the 7 Habits. And so in those earliest days, I envisioned that my kids would join me when they grew up. They were in high school at the time, and I thought they would join me. We'd have a family business, and we would go off into the sunset, right? And over the next 6 or 8 or 10 years, my kids wanted nothing to do with this business. And so it was very rudimentary. I had my front seat had 2 big binders in it with hundreds of business cards.
I remember that.
I had the Spotlight magazine, the Pace magazine. I had whatever publications to go find and learn all the senior living communities. I covered the entire valley.
You couldn't use your Apple phone, and I mean, it was back like when we had Thomas Maps, right? You had everything open.
The first phone I had, the iPhone 3 or whatever, and my daughter put all my contacts in the phone, and I had them, and you could map it. I about lost my mind. So what was that, 2006 or something? So in 2003, I'm driving around. I would drive 100, 150 miles every day.
Wow.
Zigging and zagging all over the city. I've probably driven probably 1 million miles since 2020. The year 2000 in 25 years. So it was very, very fundamental, very rudimentary. There was no real big technology breakthroughs. The first iPhone made life so much easier. I went through a really hard season when I got divorced in 2010. In 2015, when I got remarried, I had one girl working for me, and Stacy and Tammy and I created what became our model for how we were going to run options. And I was living in the Far East Valley at that time. And I really needed someone to represent me and my interests on the West Side because I couldn't keep driving 150 miles a day, right? And so from 2015 to 2022-3, I grew a model where I had various agents representing us in different aspects of town. And those 10 individuals now are running 5 separate businesses around town. I've given birth to all these new businesses.
You taught them too well.
I taught them too well. They're out on their own. And out of the blue, a year and a half ago, coming up on 2 years now, my youngest daughter, stepdaughter Leah, said to me she had gone to college, didn't go well. She didn't really want to go to school. We were at a Diamondbacks baseball game, which is a whole nother story, in the middle of the day on a Thursday, which was my dream, was to go to day games.
And were the Reds in town?
They were not.
Okay.
They were not that week. And Leah said to me, you've always teased me about working for you. I don't want to go back to college. I'd like to learn the business and do what you and Mom do. And so
you must have lost it right there.
I'm flipping out now. Like, this little girl had a really hard time with me marrying her mom and blending our family. And she now wanted to trust me with now parenting, fathering, and coaching, managing, leading her to maturity. And now she's been with me almost 2 years. She's 23, going on 24 years old. She does a beautiful job with family. She has 5-star reviews all over the place for the kind of care that she provides for family. Her older sister was a school teacher, and last summer, Molly was like, I'm sick of being in the classroom. I want to do what you guys are doing. So now if you go to our website, there's a beautiful picture of Stacy and I and our 2 girls. And I am so proud and so thrilled that I have that family business that I dreamed about 20 plus years ago. It just didn't quite look the way I thought it was going to look, but satisfying and gratifying and challenging all the same.
I have chills.
Yeah.
No, I really do, because you got your dream.
It really is.
And for our listeners, Stacy, it's been the best thing that ever happened to this man. and I am telling you.
She's pretty good, man.
well, 2010, you were a broken guy.
Yeah.
And you know what? You can't help when a relationship ends, be introspective and say, what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
Dude, you did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
You just found the wrong person.
Yeah.
And you did find the right person, and she's amazing.
Yeah, she is amazing. And one of the things is, I guess, about guys like us, Bob, we're wired in a way that, we can't be contained. We're just going to go do our thing. We're kind of, don't put a saddle on me, just let me run, right? And Stacy has been so confident in our relationship and allowed me to go run. So when the NPRA was taken off and I ran to Denver and ran to Dallas and ran to California to help these other professionals in their cities start chapters of like what we did here in Phoenix. And I was doing these various things. Now, she's just like, go do your thing, go be you. And rather than, I don't know that all men feel that from their wives, but Susie's special, Stacy's special that way, that they know the best thing to do is let us run. We'll do our part, but let us run and go be us.
Well, I'm taking a page from your playbook. 3 years ago, I had my nephew join me, and I think you know my daughter, Sammy Jo. Yep. I think you were on the air with her, too.
I was on the air with Sammy Jo.
So you've been on with Noodles, you've been on with Sammy Jo. Yeah. And for those that are listening, Sammy Jo is a political journalist, has been doing it for a number of years, and in probably the last 9 months, she's picked up doing my marketing.
Yeah.
And I am so grateful for the work that she does.
It's fun to do it with our kids.
Even our producer, TJ, has gotten a chance to know her. Yeah. So she's a professional. She's great at what she does.
Yeah.
And having them part of our businesses is really special.
Yeah.
So I told you about the tab that I was going to put down.
Okay.
So I really want to know the impetus. And I know you talked a little bit about this, to try to professionalize and legitimize this industry, which is incredibly fragmented. And don't get me wrong, our industry as well in home care has bad actors. And your industry does too. And your goal was to standardize, professionalize. I remember the first meeting, it was in my office. I remember with closed doors, there was a lot of excitement. I didn't see it, but a lot of body language going on. But you guys all settled down in, and that was the early days. I'm guessing that was like 2010, maybe 2009.
Yeah, early in 2010, there was a meeting. I was invited by another agent who's a good friend of mine, Rita McBride, and she is the OG of.
She is.
Everybody.
Big shout out to you, Rita.
Rita, if you're listening, everybody loves Rita. Yeah. My kids love Rita now. She's so kind.
Yeah.
Rita invited me to the Area Agency on Aging's MIPA, the Maricopa Elder Abuse Prevention Alliance. That group that was meeting was an advocacy group.
David Rosenthal led
it. There was representatives from OSNAHA. There was representatives from the AG's office, Better Business Bureau, the Ombudsman's office. Right, there's all these stakeholders were there, and the rattling was about us as an industry. One of the ombudsman wagged her finger at me and said, somebody needs to do something about you damn placement people. And I went,
talking to me?
Rita, why is she wagging her finger at me?
You talking to me?
I'm just your guest. Rosenthal pulled me aside and said, it's time. He explained to me about what OSNAHA's journey had been with Don and Bob Daly, and there was another Bob involved in that prior to. So anyway, Bob Heber, how that all happened. Yep. And you're the guy. I'm like, I'm the guy? What are you talking about? I'm the guy. We then launched the Passers Group, Professional Association of Senior Referral Specialists. That meeting was our stakeholders meeting in your office to get people together to see if we had or who the support was going to come from to help pull us together. There were 4 agents that organized in the middle of that core. 8 years later, 200 members, a couple of conferences with several hundred guests at our conferences. I was asked to be part of the national liftoff for the National Placement and Referral Alliance. It was a blending of independent agents like myself on that original board with franchise owners, because there's some franchise operators in our space. And I got to be an influence. I was in charge of chapter development. I was involved in the certification development. And my emphasis was and still is that we cannot stop talking about why best practices are so important. I came from a licensed industry where there were bad actors in the nurse. So just because we had a license didn't mean that there weren't bad nurses. Bob, I would get a newsletter every 90 days from the State Board of Nursing, and it listed all the people they'd taken their licenses from, all the people that were bad at their business. Yeah. And so I was like, there's no reason for us to be licensed. We just have to be better and stand with a voluntary adherence to these best practices where there's accountability. And for the first time, as the president, I was called in to be holding people accountable to our best practices. They didn't love me. And even nationally today, there is now a national movement. There's 34 chapters.
34.
Does
that mean each 34 states, or there's multiple ones in certain
multiple states? Like Texas has 3 chapters. We have 2 here in Arizona. There's 3 in California.
Have you been out to all of them?
I have not been to all of them. I was part of the first 7 chapters, and then COVID, and then I shifted my role with the board after COVID, and then I retired from the board in 2022. So 34 chapters, 1,000 members in the nation now.
And you
in the certification.
You said Rita was the OG. You're the OG in doing that. I mean, amazing, Scott.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
And what's really cool about it that people don't understand, you didn't get paid.
Oh, no.
You imagine if you gotten paid for that. I mean, you would have made millions of dollars in terms of the time capital, the sweat and equity you put in it. Because I do the same.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to do is lift up the community. Best practices have to be adhered to.
I felt that way, and I guess that was my calling. Right. Some of my colleagues that were getting into the business at my time, they established franchise operations and ended up selling those operations for millions to private. Yeah. They did really, really well while we were on the ground.
Same with HomeCare.
Chasing people.
I could have franchised my practice, but you know what? I love what I do.
Yeah, it's who I am. It's what I do.
Yeah, no doubt. So here we know the numbers, and if you do the math, 65-year-olds are going to double in the next 2 decades. 85-year-olds are going to nearly quadruple. Mm-hmm. And we don't have enough people behind us. In order to sustain our population of 345 million Americans, every child rearing female needs to have 2.1 kids, and we're at 1.63. And 1/3 of our population is solo aging.
Yep.
You know, I really would like you to take our listeners and our viewers here through why, because you are on the ground floor, why is this process so overwhelming for families, and how can we as a community make it better? Planning is definitely part of it.
Yeah.
Because part of it, Scott, you and I know, because we run into this, we have to talk about the money right up front.
Yep.
And the money's really important. I mean, the cost for care in Scottsdale.
Yeah.
If you're going into an assisted living, please give our listeners a range. What are you looking at a monthly in Scottsdale? A single room?
Yeah.
You know, what are you looking at? I'm guessing between $4,000 and $12,000.
Oh, easy. I was going to say 6 to 8.
6 to 8
for traditional assisted living. If you need memory care, you're going 8 to 12 in most cases in Scottsdale now. You could do more, but
so 6 to 8 is what it's going to cost. You get 2 meals,
3
meals, and you can live in a group home, which is assisted living residential home, or inside a community.
Yep.
And you know what? Home care is just as expensive. Actually, the crazy thing is, and you and I have had this conversation, home care used to be the price value, and people would want to stay at home because it costs less.
Right.
And assisted living cost more. It's flipped.
It's totally flipped.
It's so expensive to get home care today.
But even inside assisted living, Bob, we really have to do a good job at assessing the needs and the forecast the needs of these folks that are moving into assisted living, because the state of Arizona, in its wisdom, but also what the communities don't promote, is that there are 3 levels of care that they're licensed for, not just what they assess for and charge you for, but the state has 3 levels of licensure.
Right.
Not every facility is licensed at the top levels of care. And so what that means is often staffing, it can be rather scant in some of these communities.
Well, workforce is a problem across the
board.
board.
Workforce is a problem, right?
And in these communities, it's not just care. It's food service.
Yep.
It's housekeeping. It's engineers. It's a admin. And if somebody's not there, they are short.
Right. Well, it for a season, 4 or 5 years, Stacy was working for a senior living operator headquartered out of Texas, but they had properties here. And so during COVID, here's Stacy, the regional director of sales and marketing, and her sales director were serving breakfast every morning because they didn't have any staff to serve everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
it doesn't have to just be COVID. That's
that was during COVID,
but it's an everyday thing now.
It's an everyday thing, and there is still there's feedback that there's a scant caregiving inside some of the communities is really scant, and they have a hard time retaining and holding on to staff, and that caregivers are fluid; they move around. I remember when I was running hospital units, my behavioral health techs were pretty fluid. You had to pay them the next 25-cent raise or whatever,
or they go somewhere else.
Or they would go somewhere else for the next 25 cents. And so it's a real challenge to keep, the core. I refer to places that leadership stays intact, and leadership usually bleeds down and has the key anchors of their care staff are in place for 5 years, 10 years, stuff like that. So part of my assessment is behind the scenes is find out how long the health and wellness director, how long the management's been together, because typically they hold their care staff together more effectively than communities that are constantly in flux.
And that is really great context for our listeners and viewers to really understand how challenging it is to just run one of these communities in one of these group homes. And as I kicked this off, I was talking about how overwhelming it can be for families. And the emotions and the urgency and I said this at the top of our get together. I mean, you're a nurse, but you're also a therapist. You're also a counselor. You're also you could be clergy too, because you are clergy. Matter of fact, for the record, he had a wedding that he officiated just this past weekend. He's officiated a few of those, but you wear all of those hats. Can you share with our listeners, how overwhelming and how can they make it less overwhelming? How can they plan for when it comes to this time? Like I said, you're saying in Scottsdale 6 to 8 is on the low side, and I'm saying that care, if you're getting 24/7, is about $350,000 a year with after-tax dollars. And you do the math.
Yeah.
If you're getting 12 hours a day, 52 weeks out of the year, you're looking at, literally $175,000. And then if you do 6 hours a day, you can see where that is just so costly. Yep. And Americans think that there is a safety net. They think that when you need senior living and you need assistance in your home, the government's going to be there. And what were the 9 words that Ronald Reagan used to always say? Fear these 9 words. I'm here from the government and I'm here to help.
Yeah.
But I mean, how do we convey this so these families really understand?
Yeah. We've got to get upstream farther and sooner. And what I mean by that is that we've got to get to the family, to the core of the issue. So guys like you and me and our teams, I'm not looking for people that are just in the crisis. I'm looking for people who are in the space, because if the ice isn't started cracking yet, it will be cracking soon. Mm-hmm. Aging is happening. And so through our communities, our faith communities, through our city governments, we have to recognize the impact we're having on our fire departments. In the greater Phoenix metropolitan area, all the cities together last year answered 80,000 lift assist calls. The trucks rolled 80,000.
I'm so glad to hear. This is in 2025.
2025.
80,000 calls were to pick somebody, just to pick somebody up.
Just to pick somebody up. They were dispatched.
Do you have the number, what it cost the city?
About $1,400 a pop. Now, it's not Phoenix. That's Glendale. That's Chandler. That's Phoenix. That's Scottsdale, all collectively. But about $1,400 every time the truck rolls.
Wow. That's what, like 80 million or something?
Yeah, Scottsdale was 5,000, and roughly whatever 5,000 times 1.4 is, 7.5 million or 75 million or wherever the decimal point is.
It is.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
And so I have this kind of line in my head that people that the boomers, the generation before the boomers, I guess we call them the silent generation, right? They survived the end of the Depression and the war, or that's where they were born. Mm-hmm. Boomers started in 46 or 47 after the war. And
46.
Yeah. And
I'm a boomer. You're a boomer.
I'm a boomer.
We're on the tail end.
We're on the tail side of that. I feel like the people from the silent generation, because of how life was, they are the most proud, private, protective group of people on the planet.
And a lot of them saved.
And they saved
money because they knew what the Depression did to their families.
Correct. But they also don't take input very well. They don't take our guidance as adult children very well, and it's heartbreaking. They have a paradigm that maybe they grew up in the Midwest on the farm and there was 3 generations living in the same house. And so there's an expectation. My mom had an expectation, Bob, that her sons were going to take care of it. She never planned for a day in her life to be old and needy, but she expected us as her adult kids to, shift our life focus to her. Well, that happens in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of families I've dealt with the last 20-something years. Now, I think as the boomers are arriving into these spaces, I feel like they're a little more receptive. Okay. But for that generation that's still alive and well and we're caring for, I think this is where we've really got to get through to the churches and help them minister to the people that they minister to, help them reach and influence and hopefully achieve some openness, because we've got to help them, because the care costs are insane. The impact on the adult kids is crippling. It's suffocating. Right. I'm still running a business. I'm married. I got kids and grandkids. And now mom needs me 4 days a week to run and do this or run and do that. Or she didn't have any money. So my brothers and I are writing checks to cover her life. And so all of my own process has just made me more inspired to help get the message upstream farther and sooner to reach people and help them get on board with having these conversations with their loved ones in love more frequently, normalize the conversations.
We have a lot of work to do.
We have a lot of work to do. And we tell people, hey, we don't want to do anything to you, always with and for, but when you make decisions that impact your safety and that are, the fire department's showing up or I'm having to run over here and help you, then we need to do something different now.
And, knowing that a third of our population is 65 and older, solo aging, I mean, if you don't have these plans in place, guess what? You become a ward of the state, and you're going to have a guardian put in place. You're going to have a conservator put in place, and you're not going to have any control.
Things will happen to you then.
Exactly. Yeah. You won't have the decision making. Before we leave the senior advisor placement person, our industry, if you would, can you tell me really what should people look for in a good advisor?
Gosh, that question comes up a lot. First of all, I would say please just check their affiliation. If they're a member of the National Association, the National Placement and Referral Alliance, npralliance.org, those memberships mean something, that we voluntarily sign those best practices and we adhere to those, and that's the plan. And then there's accountability for us. So check to see if you get referred to a guy like me from the hospital or your attorney or something. Find out if they're with the NPRA or whatever. You can always check their Facebook postings and Google reviews and things like that. I would ask them, and it's mandatory for those of us that are members of the association, that we carry our professional liability insurance, that we're incorporated, that we're fingerprinted and background checked. Right? I'm working with vulnerable people. Shouldn't I be background checked?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should have a fingerprint clearance card.
We should have a fingerprint clearance card.
I do work with our state's Medicaid. It's required that I have one.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing care.
Our local chapter requires of it, although it's not a national requirement. Our local chapter's wisdom had that in fault. I hope that becomes a law at some point, that insurance and fingerprint clearance would be mandatory by statute here in the state of Arizona. Right now, it's the only law that pertains to our industry is one that I have to provide a family a written disclosure on how I get compensated, so they understand that my free service isn't really free. I'm getting paid by the relationship I have with a receiving facility. But those are things that just are super important to me. I would love to know how long they've been at it, how many families they've helped. Right.
And I think the qualities that we're looking for too is transparency.
Yep.
We're looking for someone that is listening.
Yep.
And we want someone that's advocating, not just for me, but also out there doing what you do. I mean, look, you've spent time at the legislature, the state. You have testified. I have testified. I mean, we get to know our legislators. And you know what? The challenge that we have, HomeCare and placement and referral business, is people want to try to regulate us.
Right.
And if we don't have a seat at the table, we will find ourselves on the menu. And you have to have a seat at the table. And unfortunately, and I'll say unfortunately, you guys have had a bullseye on your back for at least a half a dozen years. And every legislative period, something comes up. Yeah. And all the bills just dropped in the last 10 days. I would imagine that there's a bill out there probably trying to regulate or do something to you guys. Am I true?
Well,
am I right on that? I don't know.
I haven't heard the details. The talk from our association, their local group, back in October was that we would pursue legislation. We have a lobbyist now representing us, that we would pursue.
I'm so glad you did that.
Taking the low-hanging fruit, like do something that around consumer protection, and be an advocate and a proactive approach to this, like mandating fingerprints, mandating insurance on our behalf.
Right.
Because here's another thing, folks. The assisted living homes, these 10-bed and under private residential facilities, there's no state requirement that they be insured. So what you have is uninsured, unlicensed people taking people to licensed but uninsured.
There's no insurance. They're not required?
No. Wow. So you can just see the mass of this, right?
Right.
And so it's been one of my missions is that, no, we should be insured. Everybody should be insured. Right. And I know that the insurance companies would just then have a field day and raise the rate. I mean, I get all that, but aren't we about protecting people, really?
And that's so true.
Right.
I mean, I behind children, older adults, I think, are the second class that are so vulnerable.
Yeah.
And we really need to be protecting them.
Yep.
So, I know this, and I see it in my space. You probably see it in the same in yours. We've been doing this a long time. And I gave the math, and we know what the numbers are. I'm finding today that people are waiting too long. 20 years ago, people were moving into these independent living communities, which were growing every single place. I mean, whether it be in Ahwatukee, whether it be in Glendale, whether it be in Gilbert, Mesa, you had all these places. They were 55 plus communities and people were active. Now people are waiting longer. And it's really a challenge for a lot of these communities because I'm talking independent living communities,
right?
Because you bring somebody in and they have deficits, they can't be there alone. So, my question to you is, how have you seen this change? Because I've seen this change.
Yeah. Absolutely, people have waited longer, and so that when they finally choose senior living, or they're forced into senior living because they can't care for their loved one at home any longer, the care costs are even higher, right? And the sticker shock is profound, and people go, "Holy Moses!" Right?
Right.
Oddly, I've seen some luxury independent livings pop up in the last few years. Now, they're not full, but they're offering lifestyle and engagement. And I think a couple things that they do offer that people should consider. One is the research will show that new learning new things, challenging your brain is one of the keys to warding off any memory loss, or if you've been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, it elongates the journey, gives you better quality of life if you're learning new things. And so a lot of those independent livings are kind of learning centers. There's a lot of learning. There's a lot of outside educators that come in and lecturers and all that kind of stuff. There's
I know you're thinking of Marabella, which is right there on the ASU campus.
ASU campus. But a lot of those freestanding independent living invite that in.
Cool.
I was talking to Daniel Houston the other day. You know Daniel Houston from Ascent Audiology, and again, it was just reminding me that the number one or one of the top reasons or contributors to memory loss is hearing loss,
right?
And diagnosing hearing loss early. And for those that put that off,
Stacy say you can't hear so well.
He's suggesting I might stop in for a visit.
Because Susie's like, you don't listen to me.
I know I do, but if the independent living start helping in that, and that's their. I guess I say all that to say, hey, I think as they start carrying the flag for like this is a healthier lifestyle, living in isolation is really detrimental to your mental health. We're even though if you're solo aging, we got to learn to live with other people, and that's how you stay alive and vibrant and thriving. That living in your house, in your apartment all the time, I know that's where your comfort zone is at. But is that your best life? And the answer in a lot of cases is no. They should be living or could be living more vibrantly with other folks. And so I think that as they hone that message, independent living be more attractive to people. But we sure hope people start hearing the message sooner than later, not waiting for crisis all the time.
Loneliness is really, it's detrimental. They say it's, the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
It kills.
And it was long a problem before COVID.
Right.
And, I'm a big believer in adult day care and other ways to bring people together. We need to figure out how to do this so that people can age as gracefully. And I know, like Dr. David Kuhn says that successful aging, what does that look like? Yeah. Well, you know what? Having independence and whether you have some assistance in your own home, that's what really matters.
Right.
We've really spent a lot of time talking about the trades that we live in. And, you are my buddy, my pal, and I'm going to put you on the spot. So we're going to humanize, Scott Fischer and ask him some rapid fire questions. So real quick, beach or mountains?
Beach.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Early bird or night owl? Night owl.
Early bird.
One word that best describes your work?
Passion.
Ooh, that's so perfect. So what myth is there about senior living? What's the biggest myth?
I know this is supposed to be fast. My feeling is it doesn't solve all your problems. Kids still have to stay involved. You can't just drop your mom there. You have to be involved.
And that happens way too often.
Yeah.
Way too often.
Yeah.
What habit has helped you succeed?
Consistency.
A book that influenced how you think about life and leadership.
Oh, Developing the Leader Within by John Maxwell.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. His earliest work. Yeah.
By best advice you ever received?
Leave people better than you found them.
Perfect. What keeps you motivated after 20 plus years?
Teaching my girls how to do what we've done to keep this thing going.
If you weren't doing this work that you're doing now, what would you be doing?
You asked me this before you hit the camera, and I would say I would be drinking rum in Belize. But in all seriousness, Bob, I feel like I'm a teacher at heart.
You're doing some of that. So if you wouldn't mind, I'm done the rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
Beside being a owner of a senior placement and advisory company with your children now working in it and your wife, you mentioned that Stacy has given you some time to do other things.
Right.
And it is inside our vertical, helping people age the best they can. What are you doing now?
Well, I had a vision during COVID that I would create and I called it Options University, and I would be an education center. I've always considered myself an educator, an advocate, and an expert in the resources of my community. And so Options University was born last year, and I provide a basic training boot camp for aspiring professionals from around the nation that want to start a business like mine. They don't have to buy a franchise. They don't have to struggle out of the loan. They could come to a guy that's been at it a couple of decades, and I've written a 16-hour, 8-module program to train people and help them launch. And we do it virtually. So I've trained people from Long Island to northern Washington, down to South Texas, up to northern Wisconsin and Michigan.
Wow, you covered the states.
I helped about 50 people now in the last 12, 15 months start a new endeavor by teaching them the basics, pointing them to our national best practices, and sharing with them how I've done what I've done.
And do you stay involved as you give them the playbook, but obviously there's some coaching and counseling that is involved.
Yeah, every month we do a monthly, I call it Shop Talk. So the last week of the month, next Monday, I have Shop Talk for 90 minutes. And the graduates are invited back to come talk and visit and share about their issues, their families. I've given them free access to me to keep calling me. It's not a consulting business. I trained you, and now if you need something, give me a call. And so I just want to continue to be an influence.
So how do they find out about you and connect with you with regards to this?
Yeah, our friends at the CSA, Curtis Peterson.
Big shout out to you, Curtis.
Yeah, Curtis at the Certified Senior Advisors, Jeff Schmidt and Amanda at Hub International. They're the insurance company that insures a lot of the agents around the nation. My buddies at the Senior Home Coach, Catherine Ambrose. Thank you so much. I have buddies that developed a software program just for senior advisors like myself, and Jason Buckingham, JD Huntington at the Senior Place. So collectively, these guys have sent me their clients and trusted their relationships to me. And that's led to, like I said, about 50 of them getting through the program now.
Is there a website or is a phone number? How do we reach you?
Yeah, optionsforseniorliving.com. Everything's there.
So everything comes in through optionsforseniorliving.com.
Yep.
And if people wanted to learn about passers and NPRA, how do they find out?
The NPRalliance.org is the national association. The passers chapter page is within the national, as all the other chapters are there. They're all listed in the boards and all that are there.
So it's National Alliance PR?
NPRalliance.org.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Scott Fischer. Man, it's been a lot of fun having you on. And there's so much more I'd love to talk to you about. Real quickly, baseball starts next month.
Yep.
Spring training.
Yep.
We're going to do a spring training, you and me.
I always do.
But Cincinnati, I mean, they showed some life last year. I mean, they came on really strong.
Right.
What's it looking like for 2025,
well,
26?
I think they're going to be there again. I think the Cubs lost Kyle Tucker. The Reds have this great core group. I think they've got the right manager in Tito Francona. He's won championships. He brought one to Boston of all places. He almost got Cleveland over the line, and I think he's going to get Cincinnati in the playoffs this year.
And Pete Rose this year, he goes into the hall, you think?
When did the veterans have to, whenever the next time the cycle goes where the veterans can pull people back, and I don't know when that cycle is, if it's 26, I think it's 27.
Yeah, so for listeners, not only is he a die-hard Cincinnati Reds fan, but Pete Rose is like somebody that you've immortalized, idolized. You got a chance to meet him.
I did.
And now that they have no longer banned him, I would imagine to be his time, right?
Well, his work ethic was what it was, Bob, because
Charlie Hustle.
Yeah, he epitomized Cincinnati, the underdog kid, the guy that didn't have the most talent, but he outworked everybody. And I guess I always saw myself in that vein.
You are that guy. You're the Pete Rose of the senior placement and advisory business.
I don't have a gambling problem, but
no, you don't. Scott Fischer.
Good to see
so
you,
great
brother.
to have you
Thank
here
you.
on Health Futures. We'll get you back. We won't wait 6 years.
Okay, sounds
Make
good.
it a great day.
Thank you.
Have a great week. We'll be back next week.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress Home Care Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit cypresshomecare.com.